Good morning, everybody. How are you? I'm Meredith Herrenbrook with Becoming Ridiculously Awesome and Living Your Awesome. So I'm wondering how many people we have online. I'm going to check that right now. Still learning this whole thing. Anyway, today I really wanted to talk to you about depression, where it can start, where you can get it, what it feels like, what it might feel like, and we're going to go from there. So what exactly is depression? I've actually experienced it myself, and it actually happened last week where I just had some things going on, and I actually was sick the week before, and then I ended up getting in this big funk, and it wasn't just a light funk, it was something kind of heavy, and I had recognized it from before. I had had that experience before when I was younger, and it was of course extremely tough, and I don't know if some of you have had that experience before, but it might feel like a wet blanket, lack of energy, lack of absolute interest in everything, even the smallest thing of maybe even having some coffee, all those little delights that often we might enjoy, walking on the beach, having a smile with someone. Depression can really feel lonely, isolating, and there's just lack of energy. So one of the things I actually did really quickly this morning is, I'm going to pull this up, and thank you for your patience if I get a little crooked. Here we have my handy dandy, so I like to say handy dandy diagram here, okay? So, sorry. So how depression might feel. I was looking at these and I was thinking, okay, maybe you feel like it's a pile of things on top of you and you're squished towards the ground, or like that wet blanket feel. Or maybe you're feeling walled in from your experiences, that you have no place to go, that there are no options. There are no, and so it's like almost a walled city, if you will, that all these things that are around you, there's no way out. There are no options. And then perhaps you have this person running away from life, responsibilities, things that you just don't want to deal with. I think these are some of the ways that we can have that experience, and maybe there are more. If there are, I would love to hear from you and have you guys write in on what your experience might be. So I'm trying to see here of getting people on here so I can see what's going on. Anyhow, thank you. So this is technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience. So what I want to talk about more is the getting through depression. So we've kind of talked about what depression is, or what it might feel like, of feeling that wet blanket, feeling that experience of no options, sadness, that sort of thing. And so here you go. So these are maybe some of the ways that you're feeling depression, okay? So in clinical terms, we can talk about what depression is, but I think it matters more about what we're feeling and what we're experiencing. Even a friend yesterday had talked about how in the winter, without this, enough sunshine, rain just makes her extremely depressed, and it's really hard for her to get out of it. She has, she would have just even the smallest thing of putting on your shoes or doing anything. There was no joy whatsoever. And I think the system, our body, the system of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, there's this imbalance, and there's like this weight that we can't seem to get out of. And it's dark, it's heavy, there's less desire. So let's just talk about other triggers. I would love to hear from you guys on maybe what triggers you have experienced. Maybe it's lack of sunlight. Maybe it's just overwhelm, and then your system shuts down. There are too many things to think about. There's too much going on. There's so many stresses: money, work, family, children, taking care of maybe parents. The list can go on, and it can be forever, right? Maybe it is chemical. Maybe it is certain imbalances of nutrition. So one thing I would suggest is, before I go on into kind of my part with NLP, is if you have had depression or you're really looking for help, I would really suggest, and the things that have helped me, no, I'm not a doctor, but I would suggest maybe going to see your doctor, explaining what's kind of going on for you and what the stresses are, maybe seeing a therapist or a nutritionist even, kind of maybe do even blood work just to get a baseline of what's going on. So you can really get a baseline on what's, maybe it's not even emotional at all, but it's really just a chemical thing in your body. And that can be really easily taken care of. And then you can start feeling like wanting to join the rest of life and what you normally enjoy doing. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is what you're dealing with, like when we're dealing with emotional depression. Okay, so in the middle of this depression, when I was telling you that I had felt this depression, because I'd experienced it before, and with, kind of my training, I had, I just sat there and I just sat with the emotions. And one of the things that was really important for me to do is to acknowledge what I was feeling. I think a lot of us don't give ourselves enough credit to really just sit with something. I think we're always maybe putting pressure on ourselves to feel perky all the time and right as rain and, keeping up with the Joneses and all those things, which is kind of vanity, if you will. No one's going to feel perfectly perfect all the time. And perfect is kind of an illusion anyway, right? It is what it is. You feel what you feel. If you don't want to feel that way, there are solutions. Okay. So anyway, so I sat there with this experience, and I finally had to acknowledge I was avoiding it, right? I shouldn't feel this way. There's no reason, etc. But I think when you owe yourself and give yourself that space and time to go, I don't feel good. I don't want to do anything, etc. Name what you were feeling, name why you're feeling it, and just live with that for a while. If it's an hour, maybe it's a day, give yourself 2 days. Tell everyone in your family or whoever you need, I'm not feeling it right now, and give yourself space to allow yourself the permission to feel that. You're feeling it for a reason, okay? And so when we give credence to that, I think it allows ourselves to actually, once we acknowledge and sit with it, then we can start to then move to the next step. But if we never acknowledge and we're always pushing it away and this and that, it's never going to get solved, right? I would say, it's like if the red light is on in your car, you go, yeah. I'll attest, I'll tend to that later. I'll deal with that later, right? But I think the red light will just keep there, of course, until maybe your gas goes out or the oil lights then starts to go on and so forth. Whatever it is, it's not really good to ignore, right? A car, we're kind of like a car in that way. We are running our systems that need to be checked and taken care of. So let's look at where those red lights are. So once you acknowledge it, I think it's important to not have expectations or judgments about it. Let yourself sit with it and be okay. For me, I felt like kind of a walled city, right? I do architecture, so I always kind of liken myself or add things that are architectural related sometimes. But I felt, wow, once I could name that, I felt I didn't have options in a certain regard. And it was actually with my child, she's 4.5. And I was just having a real hard time because we were butting heads and I didn't have the resources at that time to feel okay, to be strong enough, patient enough parent, and I was feeling a lot of judgment. So anyway, so I felt walled in, and then I go, so when you are there, start to label maybe what you're feeling crappy about. What do you not like? Write it down. Allow yourself to look at it and be with it. I think that's a really important part that a lot of us don't. We take pills. We just want to feel better. We want to take juices. We want to take nutrition. Sometimes it's just emotional, and it's okay not to feel great. Okay? Sit with that and allow yourself time to even process and be in that funk, and then we'll move out of it. Okay? So what does this have to do with you? Let's be honest with yourself. Maybe you've boxed yourself in. Let's look at what has boxed you in. Often it's not, and most of the time, it's not necessarily what's out there. It's ultimately in here, okay? What are the self-limiting beliefs that you have created? What are the ideas have you in this experience? What are the constructions? What are the feelings that keep you bound to kind of receive like a certain result, right? If we're wanting to have a certain experience in our life, then, and we're not getting it, right? I was having a conflict. There was an expectation out there and my needs were not being met, right? Doesn't mean the needs were necessarily reasonable, but they were there. Doesn't matter if it was reasonable, quote, or not. But there is this conflict. So you have to look at kind of what are the constructions and what are the expectations that you have before, and I apologize, I'm going to restart. What are those expectations that are not being met? What needs are not being met? And label them. And then what you can do now is go, all right, my expectations over here. In the last live video I did last week, I was talking about these equations, right? Let me see if I have it. Okay, because it's all related here, right? We are wanting to have a certain experience, a intended positive outcome, okay? These are results. This is what we want. This is why we get out of bed in the morning sometimes, right? But they are all created because of our thoughts and our feelings and our actions. All of these circumstances and what we create within ourselves ends up getting us to those results. And when those results are not met, we get frustrated, we get sad, we get bummed, and we have a reaction for what's happening. And that reaction might be depression, it might be anger, so forth. It might be physical frustration, okay? So once we have kind of identified down the list on all those things that are we are frustrated with, how we are not getting our needs met, then sit with that for a little bit and then look line by line and go, and you have to be really honest with yourself and go, I don't care if it's unreasonable but I have my needs that I need to have taken care of. Like I need 20 minutes in the morning before I hang out with anybody else in the world. I need my coffee. I need to reset, align, and so forth. And when you don't get that, for example, then you might be a little cranky or something because you haven't really felt the pinnacle of how you're wanting to feel before you present yourself to the rest of the world and interact with the rest of the world. So how am I doing so far? I want to kind of check in with everybody and see if you have any questions, if you've experienced that before, and maybe what got you out of kind of your spiral and downhill experience. And let me know what ideas you guys have even on what has helped you. I would really love to hear from you while I'm talking about this. So please chime in, add comments or anything, please. Okay, so we have thoughts, we have belief systems, we have expectations, we have judgments, right? It's kind of what Buddhism calls suffering. When we have this ball of stuff that we are things are not being met, then I'm going to have feelings about that. So we need to let those judgments go. So if you can imagine something that you're frustrated with, sad about, having a hard time with, maybe close your eyes for a moment and breathe into those feelings and breathe into that experience and talk to maybe parts of yourself and go, okay, what do I need? What are the judgments that I have that it should be this way and it's not? That the timing is not great? Whatever you feel is frustrating you or that you are having a hard time with. And then I would like you to kind of breathe into the middle of that experience and what that feeling is through all parts of your body, through all fingers and toes. And maybe you have a feeling that's out there somewhere, maybe a foot outside of you. Another way to identify what our depression is, even if we don't have maybe words for it, does it have a color? Does it have a shape? Does it have a size? Does it have a location? Okay, this is a tool that I use sometimes with myself and my clients. Identify it, okay? So it doesn't feel so huge out here and all-encompassing like big weighted blankets or running away from this huge, horrible monster. Identify it, shape, size, color, feeling, if it has words or phrases, description, anything that you have. Use all your senses. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? Okay. And then look at that and then maybe pop that organism outside of you and maybe put it in front of you 5 feet away. Okay. You can still be attached to it if you want, but maybe put it outside of you so you can have some distance, so you can feel that you are still you. And that is an experience, a feeling, but it's not you. It's not who you are intrinsically. So this stuff in front of you is kind of what suffering is. That is what Buddhism talks about. It is the whole ball of wax of you being out of alignment with what really is and what you want life to be or what you want your experience to be. So once you have it in front of you, maybe try and manipulate it. Maybe change the color. Maybe change the phrase. What does that need to shift, or what needs to shift in that to make it okay, to make it maybe go away or make smaller? And so what needs to shift? What within you? What belief systems, judgments, anything that is holding you back from just being in alignment with what is and what your life is doing at this moment, what people are saying to you, what your job is doing. When you can align with that, then you can then get out of the depression. The depression is a lack of alignment, okay? So when you are looking out there, manipulate it. And what's cool about that actually is that you can manipulate it. Oh, judgments are malleable. Expectations, I can change them. My needs, I can somehow figure out how to get them met. If they are really what I need, say I really need a hug and I'm only getting, or I need connecting. Let's just say this. If I have a need that is connecting with other people because my body craves some connecting and so forth, how do I get it? Let's quantify it. How do I get it? Where could I get it? Maybe I could hug a friend. Maybe I could go out to lunch with someone. Maybe I can take time for myself and give self-love. Maybe I need 5 minutes of meditation or just a walk to the block. Maybe I need just a hot cup of tea or coffee. Maybe I just need 5 minutes to reset and get back to me and feeling good and getting back into what makes me feel good. So when we know that things are malleable and controllable, then that's where we can start creating action and getting ourselves out of that spiral of depression. Again, I'm talking about emotional depression, not necessarily clinical chemical depression, and those things that other medical professionals can handle. I help with the emotional and sometimes even interpersonal connecting with others and depression and so forth. So when you find your thoughts and beliefs and they're malleable, well, does it have to be like that? When we kind of say, well, of course it is this way. Of course I have this experience and that's the only way it is. If you can change the size and shape out here and maybe the words and maybe the size of it, that, okay, well, let's ask it questions, right? We're changing. Where did it come from? How old is it? What are my feelings about the first time I felt that? What was happening? What are the judgments or the beliefs that kind of came up, right? What would I lose of value if I shifted or changed this experience? Would I still be okay? Would I survive? And would others close to me survive and be okay if I change this? Those are questions to start to ask yourself about your feeling sad and depressed, okay? Are there any questions or comments that any of you guys have? I would love to hear them, to have a really good dialogue with you about what this experience is or how you got out of it. I do kind of want to wrap up with this, but I want to leave you with one thing. Without getting into, like we've talked in more depth about kind of a bigger, deeper solution, right, of really challenging those depressing thoughts and experiences. Another tip that I had learned, which was so powerful and very, very simple, is if you have an experience of feeling just dread, horror, anything negative that you want to get out of, I would love to suggest that when you're having this experience, sit with it and then go, what is the emotion or feeling beneath that? Maybe you're feeling anger. What is the feeling beneath that? Okay, now I'm feeling sad or I'm having a memory. Okay, what is the feeling beneath that? Or what is the experience beneath that? And what you keep doing is you keep dropping down beneath and beneath and beneath and beneath. You're kind of going in a way back in time. You're going through the layers, kind of like an onion. You keep going through and going through. And then what will always happen is you will come out the other side of when you are okay before that depression or that experience happened. And then when you sit with that, you can be okay. And what you're doing is actually kind of processing in a nonverbal way of what those experiences are. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I would love to have your comments and feedback. Please buy my book if you want to learn more about what I do and how you can learn about NLP and constellation work and Huna work. My website is livingyourawesome.com. You can have a 30-minute free consultation if you would like my assistance and guidance for life coaching, NLP, and all of that wonderful stuff. Again, I have Facebook Live every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And please subscribe. I have more webinars coming. I'm working on some online courses for you. And I will actually, I think next week or maybe the beginning of March, actually, I'm going to be having the weekly rocket blasts and monthly newsletters. So thank you guys for listening and watching. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.